So one weapon I never see except power stance with jump attacks and great axes, which I think is a shame because I think great axes have a lot going for them. They're comparably fast to a great sword, but deal more poise damage than a great sword and have more hyper armor than a great sword. So I wanted to make a showcase, kind of showing off how viable two-handing a great axe can be. First things first, let's get into the build. Looking at the stats, we have 60 vigor, 10 mind, 46 endurance, 50 strength, 23 dexterity, that's with the mask, 9 int, 9 faith, 7 arcane. We want a lot of HP on our build because with a hyper armor weapon you're going to be making a lot of trades, so having 60 vigor was kind of a must for me. Get 726 AR on the two-handed Longhaft axe, at only plus 24 because it's not that big a deal to have a plus 25. Somber weapons, it's a little bit bigger of a deal to use that Ancient Dragon Somber Smithing Stone. But when it comes to basic weapons, the 24 is just fine, honestly, in my opinion. Also note the poise value. We have 100 poise even. That's not a particular breakpoint. It's just more than enough to make the trades we need to make. Obviously, nothing's going to let you trade with a Colossal, but it will let you trade with lots of attacks from great swords and anything weaker than a great sword. So I think for this video I want to do something a little different and just add commentary about the fights in post instead of rambling about a particular thing that I want to touch on or, you know, talking about the build or meta strategies. So we've got this Rivers of Blood spammer who can hold up to, you know, a little bit of axe aggression, and he dies very quickly. No surprises there. Even if he had consistently aggressed me, I would have been able to mash out a hit stun and trade with him with my build. But now we're playing against someone who's exceptionally skilled, Katsuragi, I forget his username. We get the funny backstab on him while he's using the scythe, which has infinite poise during certain frames in the animation, and we're able to just use mix-ups and aggression to kill him pretty quickly and not let him be too much of a danger to us, because if that fight had dragged on, we would have died unceremoniously. Speaking of fights that drag on, here's a Howl Claw user. I've never seen a Howl Claw setup. Main hand halberd, offhand claw. It doesn't seem like a particularly good setup to me, especially compared to its contemporaries. Howl Dag and Howl Axe, being main hand halberd, offhand dagger, main hand halberd, offhand axe. But that's what he's going for, that's what he wants, and, you know, we're liking it. I put Spinning Slash on the axe, the Longhaft axe, and I don't think that it's a particularly great Ash of War, especially for the axe, but I think it looks really cool when you rest the axe on your back and spin it around you, kind of like Stamp Sweep. And it is a 3-hit true combo if you can break poise on each hit, which is not guaranteed. You'll see in one of the fights against, I'm pretty sure it's Katsuragi, is the username of the guy we fight. It's KS, he's using full Armor of Solitude with the Beast Head. We go for the weapon art, and we don't break his poise on the last hit. I really like this fight, though. I was talking earlier in the video about how no one ever uses axes, and then here we have a clip of a mirror match, me with my Longhaft, him with his Crescent axe, and we're just swinging at each other. And it's just really nice. We get the R1 into uncharged R2 roll catch combo into weapon art mix-up, get the full thing. He wisens up and doesn't get hit by the R1, R2 again, so we don't get to kill him in one combo. But after we reset to neutral, we have a significant advantage, and we're able to play around a little bit. I'm going for some funny backstabs, trying to bait him into something. And then you can see the hyper armor of the Longhaft axe in action, the uncharged R2 versus the jump R1 of the great axe. And my uncharged R2 wins, surprisingly. And two things about hyper armor. The first one is there was a patch, I think it was like 1.08, that made it to where hyper armor had a % damage reduction added to it, which you didn't need to win trades in order for it to apply. Just if you were in a hyper armor frame, regardless of if you could actually poise through the incoming attack, you had extra defense for the duration of that swing. And that helped us win that trade. But then also, we're wearing Bullgoat's Talisman, and I believe it was either Assassin or Gabri that found that the Bullgoat Talisman, while on paper looks like it increases your poise by 30%, actually reduces incoming poise damage by 30%. So for passive poise, that's basically the same thing, one way or the other. But when you add hyper armor into the mix, you get that 30% reduction twice. It applies to your hyper armor poise health and your passive poise health. So it's really worth noting that Bullgoat's Talisman is a must when you're trying to make use of hyper armor and poise. One big weakness that I want to talk about for slow weapons in general, but especially great axes because they don't have exceptional range, is passive players and reaction rollers. You really have to mix up what you're doing in order to get good aggression against a player who's just going to reaction roll everything you do. You got to look out for power stance straight sword users. You always have to look out for light roll users. And, you know, toggling block, like waggling L1, whatever you want to call it, is very useful to throw them off, make them wonder whether or not the next time your weapon moves, is it a swing or is it a, you know, just a block. And, you know, short of that, there's also mixing in running attacks and mixing in R2s instead of R1s to make it to where they roll in response to your weapon's startup and not your weapon following through on the attack. And then another thing that can really hurt an axe user, a great axe user, is really fast weapons. Because sometimes if they have enough poise damage to break your passive poise, they can come out fast enough that you aren't able to get into your hyper armor frames to be able to break through the poise damage of the weapon and make your trade. You end up just eating a hit. And on top of that, you can end up doing what I've seen people, especially Saint Riot, call suffering from success, where your hyper armor lets you withstand being hit, but you don't get to make a trade because your opponent's able to roll out after hitting you. So when it comes to fast weapons, just like with light rollers and reaction rollers, you really have to mix up what you're doing a lot and keep it unpredictable. Here we have the funny R1 into weapon art, you didn't roll directly away from me roll catch combo. It hits like a truck. It's really cool with the spinning slash, but it really only works if your opponent rolls in or rolls laterally because it doesn't have a lot of range. Even on, this is I think the longest axe in the game, or one of the two longest axes in the game, and you just can't put like forward momentum into it. Aside from the lack of forward momentum on the swings and the easily reactable nature of the weapon, Longhaft axe and great axes in general really good, especially on a strength build, but you can make them work on any build you want as long as you meet the requirements for the weapon. Most people play at 150, so feel free to throw it on a dex build because 22 or 24 strength really isn't that much to hit, especially when you take into account the fact that you should be two-handing it. So you really only need to hit like 16 strength, but then you get that annoying red X and the pop-up when you try to equip it. So like, you know, don't bother, just hit the 24 strength on your 150 builds, or run it on a strength build at 125, or run it on a faith build with 24 strength at 125, and try out great axes. They're tons of fun, you know, just poise yourself up to the nines and go swing. Just swing it. Out of hit stun, swing it. Roll catch and swing it. But yeah, Y'all have a good day. Be safe. Enjoy the game.